All right. Welcome, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming to visit us again on a wonderful Maker Monday interview. I'm sure some of you found us on the internet somewhere, whether in a Facebook group or maybe searching online about Go Imagine. You probably already know that Go Imagine is the world's first marketplace to donate 100% profits to charity. And we are doing this for a great cause, which is children in need. But the reality is we can't have this marketplace if we don't have fantastic makers who are coming together from around the country to rally around this cause and help lift it up so that we can do a lot of good in the world together. So every Monday we get together and we meet another one of our makers so you can all learn more about them, what they sell, and how they do what they do. So without further ado, let's bring in everybody Sharon Ballard from Fairview Lavender Farm. Hello, Sharon.
Hi, John.
I'm excited to have you here. I've been watching you for months now, and I love what you do.
Well, thank you. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, I have to tell you that we've been doing this now for a couple months, these Maker Mondays, and every time I talk to a maker, I get to hear another unique story, one that is different than the one before it. Everyone seems to get to where they are through a different path, and I had the luxury of talking to you earlier today, hearing about your path, which doesn't seem like the traditional one. So can we just start off? Tell us a little bit of where you're from and how you got into online making, but with your farm.
Well, we're in Kentucky. We're about an hour away from Louisville. And we ended up here kind of by accident. We were just looking for a place that was a better place to garden. And we found this incredible old farmhouse. It's 150 years old. Mm-hmm. And started researching the history and decided to try to do something, make a little extra money, enjoy the gardening. Mm-hmm. And we kind of started focusing down on herbs and narrowed that down even a little bit further to lavender. And here we are. That was 7 years ago.
So it was 7 years. What were you doing before 7 years ago?
Corporate America.
Corporate America.
Yes, we both had jobs that we commuted to, about an hour commute. 1 hour there, 1 hour back. It was normal for us. I'd done it for 17 years, and it wasn't until I stopped doing it that I realized how much time I was wasting.
So at what point were you working at the corporate America job and you turned to your husband and said, I want to buy a farm? Like, what was that moment like, or how did that come about?
We didn't buy a farm. We bought a house that happened to be on a farm.
Okay, so you bought a house because you loved the house. Had a lot of land, and after you were there, you said, hey, maybe we can grow something. Was that?
Exactly. Let's do something with this.
Okay.
And then we started to learn about the history of the place. It's 150 years old. There's a lot of history. And it was a big, important farm for a lot of years. And we wanted to do something along those lines, but we didn't want it to involve cows, or we don't know how to do cows or livestock. And we only have 5 acres, and that's not really a lot of land. It's perfect for lavender. We have about 1,000 plants. And that's only
5 acres. It sounds like a lot of lavender.
That lavender is only on a half an acre. We have 1,000 plants, and it's only a little over half an acre.
So what made you choose lavender? Because it sounds like it wasn't growing there. You decided that lavender is what you want. What led you to lavender?
I love herbs. I've always tried to grow herbs and finally had a place where I could do it. And lavender's beautiful and everyone loves it. It smells wonderful. It has a lot of medicinal properties. And it's very, very popular right now. The growth in essential oils, everybody's using them, everybody's experimenting with them. It's a hot thing right now, so it was good timing.
Okay. And so when you were getting into this, I hear so many different stories about how makers get into what they're doing. how did you learn? Did you take any sort of formal training? Were there online classes? What did you do to actually figure out? Because I'll tell you, I have a black thumb. I don't have a green thumb. Anything I touch is just wilt. So how did you get to the point where you actually learned how to do this?
We're still learning, and we're learning how not to do it. But I did take a course for beginner farmers, and it was more about, for me, it was more about the business aspect of having a farm and making a business out of it.
Okay. Yeah. Which is a very big difference versus just, growing for a hobby versus like, I'm doing this because I have to get enough to actually sustain some semblance of a business.
Right.
Do you talk to any of your friends from when you were working in corporate America and tell them what you're doing now? Do any of them
yeah.
get surprised? When you first started, they're not surprised now. But you're like, you did what? What are you doing?
Yes. Oh, yes. There was a lot of jokes about it, and they all wanted to know when I was going to get the goats, which is still a thing. I'd still kind of like to have some baby goats, but that's not going to happen.
Well, you know what? Baby goats are probably the cutest animal in the world. The problem is they grow up. They don't stay
They do.
And I'm guessing they would eat all of your lavender. Would that happen?
Probably.
Listen, so you started growing the lavender, and were you selling it first just raw? Was it just you were selling like to people like who wants a bunch of lavender?
We started out, well, no. I knew I needed some products. The first thing that we started with was soap, but we did sell the dried lavender. It's great for crafters. Crafters love it. Other soap makers want it. It's big for weddings. Brides love it in their weddings. Mm-hmm. And we have one large buyer now who's buying our culinary lavender and making lavender bourbon.
I know, and I definitely wanted to discuss that because you mentioned that earlier today, and I found it fascinating. So let's actually jump into your store a little bit here. So I'm surprised at how much you make. It seems like you said you started with soap, right? But you have gone a lot of areas outside of soap now. I mean, we're seeing so many different things, and one thing you just mentioned was culinary lavender, which is what we have here. So. Yes. Could you talk to us more about what culinary lavender is? I didn't realize people could eat it as a spice, I guess. Like you just put it in things?
Oh, yes. It's in the mint family. And it is, my favorite is to use it with sweets in baking, but it can also be used in a savory combination for, meats and potatoes and veggies. But it depends on the variety. Some varieties are sweeter than others. It combines beautifully with chocolate, with citrus, berries. We can make some awesome desserts with it. But it has to be the right kind of lavender. If you have the wrong kind, it will taste like medicine.
Right, which I didn't realize there was like you have to have the type of lavender, it's culinary. And you said it works with chocolate and sweets, but as you just mentioned a moment ago, apparently it does well in bourbon as well.
So, yes.
Now, did this distillery approach you and said, hey, did they know they wanted lavender bourbon and went to you? Or did you know that before?
They came to us. The wife loved lavender in her coffee. She got hooked on a lavender syrup in her coffee, and that piqued her interest. And she and her husband came to us, and we sat and experimented with different types of lavender and different types of alcohol and what made the best blend. And then they took it back to the distillery and worked out the best way to do it. And they've come up with a killer.
Right. So it's selling pretty well now. What's the name of the distillery again?
The distillery is Boundary Oak. And it's in our neighboring county. It's in Hardin County, Kentucky. Okay. We're in bourbon country here, so this is perfect.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's nothing but bourbon in Kentucky, right?
Right. Bourbon and horses.
Yeah, I'm actually looking this up right now. So while this website pulls up, I do want to compliment you on something. I think you do a fantastic job with the branding in your photos.
Oh, thank you.
I really, I mean, when you look at these photos, you see not only your branding color, you see the purple throughout the photos. I mean, I'm sure that's a concerted effort to you, but even like, you know, when you're showing your bread as an example, but you have the lavender, I guess, bunch in the background.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just think you do a really good job with all this, which is really nice.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, let's see here, the distillery. I'm looking it up right now to see if I can find that specific. So what is the bourbon called again? Not the distillery, but the bourbon.
It's called St. Luke, Luke.
St. Luke Bourbon. And can you buy it just locally where you are, or are they starting to spread out a little bit?
They are starting to spread out. They had been working on being able to sell online, and I believe they were actually able to start doing that very, very recently. So they ship to other states now, but I have not checked it out myself to see exactly how it's done.
Right, right. So I found this photo right here.
That's it.
So they make this with your lavender.
That's our lavender. Yes.
Oh, that is incredible.
We were excited.
Yeah, I know. I would be excited as well. And then it looks like if I'm reading that right, it actually says, is it handmade bourbon? Is that what it says on it? Or what does it say underneath? Say, yeah. So you're in handmade across the board. So I can talk about bourbon all night long, but I want to learn more about your journey here because obviously it sounds like you started selling locally, right? You're selling out of your own farm, or where else did you go locally to sell your lavender?
We started at our local farmers market. That was my first experience at all dealing with the public at all, and I was terrified. Mm-hmm. And I loved it. It's worked out really well. I haven't done any of it this year because of the virus. Mm-hmm. The market is still going on, but we are not taking risks, so we put that off for this year. But I got a good following of customers there.
That's fantastic.
Then we moved into doing craft shows, mm-hmm. and they got bigger and bigger and bigger. Really enjoyed doing that too. And
how far away would you travel for a craft show? Was it just local ones, or did you drive a distance sometimes?
The farthest one we went to was still in the state, but it was 2 days. You had to set up the day before that, so that was 3 days, and it involved a hotel, and then we had to rent trailers, and we had to get kenneling for our dogs, and that wasn't worth it. So we had a great show and great sales, but that just wasn't worth it. So we've limited ourselves to a day's drive.
Okay, gotcha. And then so you did that for a while, and at some point you said to yourself, we want to expand and go online, correct?
We did.
And how has that experience been moving online with your product?
It's been interesting. I started out with our own freestanding webpage, mm-hmm. and that may not have been the best solution. I'm not a techie person at all. And mm-hmm. there were many, many days spent literally in tears and banging my head on the wall. And so we got it up, got it running, and it's working, and we're making sales. It is still a headache. And then I learned about you, and it was so much easier. I've tried some of the other platforms, and I didn't feel comfortable. Right. And I liked your approach. I liked the caring economy. I liked how willing you are to work with us to help us get it set up. Mm-hmm. And it's built my confidence. So I've moved my store over here.
No, and we cannot thank you enough. I mean, that's tremendous that you're willing to do that, and we hope that it's going to be fruitful for you. And I have to tell you, I mean, when we started this, I've been in technology a long time, but I'm not a handmade person, right? I'm constantly amazed by what you and all the other makers do, and it's really helping each other at this point, right? It's just how can we help makers with the technology piece while you guys help us and getting the word out for the caring economy and grow our marketplace. Because the funny thing is you say you don't have a lot of experience, but like I said, I'm amazed by your your banner. I already mentioned your branding, and then we get into the products. Now, along with your culinary lavender, I know you have other, I guess, food products here. You have a seasoning blend that
Yes.
you've created. You have tea that you make, and all of these. How did you come up with making these different, I guess, dried food blends? I mean, did you look up recipes for them? Do you experiment and create them yourself?
Both. I've grown herbs, and I like to play with the herbs and mix those, and I like to drink tea. So I just kind of started with what I liked and played around with recipes that I found and just worked out the combinations. And I don't have a lot. I think I have 5 right now. That are doing well. My original intent was to grow all of the herbs. I can't do that. The lavender takes up every bit of spare time that we have. So I source the other herbs and just add it in with our own lavender.
Right.
And the combinations I like.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's ultimately, I'm sure you drink it as well, right? And what does it take to, I guess the word would be, harvest lavender? Like when it's time, is it a seasonal thing? Is it a certain time of the year you do all the harvesting and then make products throughout the year? Can you talk to us just a little bit about what goes into farming lavender?
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears. We're in an area of the country that lavender is not natural. It's not native to Kentucky. And it doesn't like humidity, and it doesn't like a lot of rain. It doesn't like clay soil, which we've lucked out and we don't have clay, but we can't do anything about the humidity and the rain. And it's a constant battle to keep it alive and beautiful. And there's only 2 of us. It's just me and my husband. So it's a little overwhelming. But when it's in bloom, there is not a more beautiful place on the planet than to stand up in that field and hear the bees. It's just the most peaceful place that there is.
I can imagine it's calming, and I assume this is the picture of it right here, correct?
That's looking up the hill, yes.
And that's all lavender.
That's all lavender.
And when it's ready to harvest, do you just go out there with your hands and start picking it, or like, I don't even know, is there a machine you use?
No, it's all by hand. We have knives that we use. They're curved knives called a scythe. And we cut every bundle by hand, and you cut it and you bundle it up with a rubber band, and you get a wagon full and you take it down and hang it. We hang it from the ceiling of one of our buildings. And if it's real humid, we run fans to help it dry. It has to be dark and dry. And in a couple of weeks, it's dried out. And one thing we did not know when we started, we had this building full of lavender the first year. And in a day or so, we started to panic because it smelled terrible. It smelled like grass. It smelled like when you cut the yard and you bring in the grass clippings. And we consulted with all of our peers, and they just laughed at us. And they said, "Newbies, it's getting rid of the green. It's the natural process. And when that green smell is gone, then you have this lavender smell."
So it's almost condensing to even stronger lavender.
Yes.
Getting that green smell. Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Now you do have your own blog, I noticed, and I just want to make mention for anybody who's watching here that people, I'm guessing, can subscribe and view your blog about life on a lavender farm, which is fantastic. And this is your farm. This photo is beautiful right here.
Thank you.
Incredible.
Yes.
And is that your barn?
Unfortunately, no. It used to belong to this property, but when they broke up the farm, it was in a different. We just got the house and the 5 acres right around it.
Wow. Okay. And I will mention really quick that you do bees as well. You have a bunch of bees that you.
We do. My husband says that's the only livestock I'm allowed to have.
Now, are you using the honey from that for your lip balm as well?
Yes.
All right. So just to confirm, I noticed before you have a lavender honey lip balm where you actually grow the lavender and get the honey from your own bees to create this lip balm.
Yes.
I mean, you're the epitome of handmade at this point. You've grown the lavender, you've raised the bees for the honey, and then you physically handmade. I mean, did you roll the paper too?
No, but I designed the label. Does that count?
Yeah, no, this is amazing how much you've done. So with the products here, what do you think your best seller is? If you had to say there's one thing that people buy the most, what are you most known for by people buying your products?
Probably, and kind of surprising to me, it's our linen spray.
The linen spray.
The linen spray. People love it. And we sell out a lot when we go to shows. They use it in all kinds of different ways. It's originally for, excuse me, you squirt it on your pillows and your sheets before you go to bed. And lavender is very calming and soothing. It helps relieve anxiety and help people fall asleep. And people use it for their kids. I've known people who actually have told their kids that it's like monster spray, and they spray it under the beds and tell the kids that they're getting rid of the monsters under the beds, and it helps the kids relax and go to sleep.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. I might have to buy it for that exact purpose. And this is literally distilled water and essential oil from lavender. How do you press the oil out of the lavender? Do you have like a machine that like extracts the oil from it?
It is steam distilled.
Okay.
And full disclosure, we, even with 1,000 plants that we have up in the field, that is not enough to get the amount of essential oil that we use in our products. It takes a massive amount of plant material to distill oil.
I imagine. I mean, I made a glass of orange juice once with oranges, and I think I did 50 of them. I was like, oh my God, this is one glass of orange juice.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, but it's all.
So we have to source our oil. We use the lavender itself and the products that have the actual dried lavender in it. But we do have to source our oil because we just can't seem to grow enough to we use a lot of it.
Right. Well, I imagine. So the dried items here, which includes the soaps, or I'm guessing the lip balm as well, anything that you're using dry is what's going into your ingredients from your farm.
Right. Any of the culinary and any of the, like the sachets and the pillows, any of that. And even my soaps, when I first started selling, that was my first product. And our local farmers market is kind of unique because they have a rule that anything that a vendor sells has to contain something that they grew. So I had to find a way to get the soap, to get that dried lavender into a product. And it's an exfoliant. So if I grind it fine enough, it's an excellent exfoliant, so it's beneficial to the soap.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. So I'm amazed by you because you mentioned you had to go to you went to classes to learn to farm, but now tell me about how you learned to make the products. Like, so how did you learn to do all this?
YouTube is your friend.
Okay.
And there's lots of tutorials and classes online, and a lot of failed batches of soap, and just a lot of experimenting. It's a whole learning process. And even once you get the process down, then there's a whole learning what equipment is best. And I thought I had it down pat. And then we started really selling a lot of soap, and I was making it in a loaf that made maybe 12 bars of soap at a time. Wow. And it was just constant. So we found a mold that makes 25 pounds at a time. Wow. Which is about 95 bars.
That's incredible. So you're doing 95 bars at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And now talk to me about your operation, because we talked earlier about the fact that it's kind of half on your farm you do this and half a commercial kitchen, correct?
Right. We have some of the products require that you use a commercial kitchen, and we don't have that capability on the farm. we're out in the country, we're on a well, and it's really hard to get a well to pass the tests that it needs to pass for commercial use.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need, for a commercial kitchen, you need so many sinks and so many drains, and we're on a septic system, and our septic system is about 85 years old, and there is no way anything's going to tap into that.
Yeah, no, I imagine not.
So we have access to a commercial kitchen that we use.
That's wonderful, and so I mean, when you started using the commercial kitchen, did you feel like you were going big time? I feel like that's a big moment, like you're going to now be using a commercial kitchen versus trying to probably when you started just out of your house.
Yeah, it was a little intimidating,
Right.
but the people are wonderful, and it's a beautiful kitchen, so everything's working out great.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like you're doing fantastic. So looking at your products, is there one that I always ask this to makers, because there usually is one. Is there one that has more of a sentimental value to it, or one that has a meaning to you more than just the product you're making?
Yeah, the most sentimental one is the neck wrap, and it started before I ever even thought of growing lavender. I had my mom. She was elderly. She was 92 when she passed, and she lived with my sister, but she came and stayed with us a lot. And always cold, tiny, frail, 92-year-old, always freezing. And I bought her online. I found this nice big, it was like a shawl, but it was filled with lavender and something. And you could put it in the microwave. And the minute we would put that on her, she was like in a coma. She was so sound asleep. And we had to remember to take that off of her about 30 minutes before it was time to eat, or she'd never get up. We couldn't get her up and get her to the table to eat. So she passed before we got the first plants in the ground, even though she knew what we were doing. She knew we were going to do it, and was happy about it. And so when I had all this lavender available to me, that's one of the things that I wanted to do. I haven't started making the giant wraps yet, but these are great to put around your neck, and it's soothing. And if you have stiff muscles or just cold, achy,
yeah,
and it makes me think of my mom.
Yeah, and it's filled with lavender. What else is it filled with?
A lot of people use rice, but I like flaxseed. The flaxseed, each little seed has a tiny little bit of flaxseed oil in it, and that helps hold the heat just a little bit longer. And it gives it a weight too. It's a comforting weight.
Right, almost like a weighted blanket. You can feel the weight of the. That's great. So I'm sure your mom would love to see what you're doing today, especially the farm that she knew was coming, and making the neck wrap that she loves so much. Couple more questions for you. Tell me about the name Fairview. How did you come up with Fairview as a name? We
didn't actually come up with it. When we bought the place, I'm a genealogist, and I kind of nerdy, and I dig around in history a lot. And I wanted to research the history of the farm. And I found a newspaper clipping from 1891 where the daughter of the house here got married here in our parlor. And it said the wedding was at the home of the bride, Fairview. And I was just ecstatic that we had a house with a name.
Right.
And that was before we ever started thinking about turning it back into a farm. And when we did, there was no question that was going to be the name.
And it's a fantastic name. I mean, it's a really good name, and
it's a pretty name. We do have beautiful views, and I'm sure that's why they chose that name.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's fantastic. So what does the future hold for Fairview Lavender Farm? If you had to predict where you're headed, or where you want it to go, where do you see yourself in the future with the farm?
That's a tough one, because it's a lot of physical work.
Right.
And we're old and getting older by the day. and it's only the two of us. And we're going to have to start scaling that back some. We do a lot of agritourism and have a lot of people come out here in our season, and we have classes and we have U-Picks. It's a lot, and we would like to start focusing more on online and making our lives easier.
So you don't have to plug everything to the fairs. People come to you online.
Yes, and we learned that this has been a hard year for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Artists and vendors are having a hard time, and all of our shows have been canceled, and we thought that would be just terrible, and it has been, but it also has had its benefits, and we've learned how nice it is to not necessarily do that. So it's helped us kind of focus down and think, maybe let's do a little bit more online.
Yeah, I mean, online has its different challenges, right? But it definitely is probably less manual labor versus trying to travel or set booths up places, right?
Yes.
But now there's more online challenges, which getting found.
Yes.
Online, right? So, but at least you can do that in your underwear in your living room and not have to travel. Right? So, however you want to do it. Well, listen, I can't be more thankful, Sharon, that you found us. I think you're a wonderful addition to Go Imagine. I love the products that you're selling to all of the buyers that hopefully will be coming soon to Go Imagine. So thank you for your support. I hope everybody gets to watch this because your story, I think, is great and your products are fantastic. I say that by experience because my wife did buy one of your creams and she thought it was great. So
yes, thank you.
So with that said, is there anything else you'd like to tell everyone, or just we can all visit you where? Where's your website?
It's fairviewlavender.com.
All right, Fairview, you heard it here. Go to fairviewlavender.com to learn more about the farm. Go to the blog and also visit her on Go Imagine at Fairview Lavender Farm and Go Imagine. So yes. Sharon, thank you again for everything. I will see you in the group as I usually do, and have a wonderful night.
All right, you too. Thank you so much for all you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.